I'm about it. I'm about it.
Yeah.
I'm about it. I'm about those tacos.
Making us hungry right now.
So you don't have just one answer that's going to just solve all the problems for everyone trying to create a restaurant out there?
I wish you'd be renting the building space from me, likely, if that was the case.
And then there's some wild stories. There's some wild stories when it comes to restaurants. Like there was one guy said that there was a he walked into the kitchen and the chef was like overdosed on the floor. Like that's wild.
I've heard that one.
Yeah. And then he just got up and continued to cook.
Having a taco, I mean, tacos are so popular. Having a taco section that you can bring in, new fish, doesn't always have to be tilapia. Please stop serving tilapia so much. There's other fish in the sea. No, there's no drum roll. No, don't.
Okay, so John, being the food industry expert that you are, what do you see that it takes to open a restaurant in 2023?
Loaded question, my brother.
So you don't have just one answer that's going to just solve all the problems for everyone trying to create a restaurant out there?
I wish you'd be renting the building space from me, likely, if that was the case. It's a myriad of answers. I'll say some things to hopefully inspire the viewers a bit, but the first one that jumps to mind is resilience. I'm proud to say I'm part of, I think, one of the most resilient industries in the United States, working with restaurants.
People got to eat.
Well,
people are hungry.
They've got to eat, and look what just happened to us. Everything shut down on us. So people were furloughed. People were let go. People were caused to think about their career path, and yet they came back and dusted themselves off and jumped right back to it, right? And so you're looking at an industry that is very complex. There is no one answer. I think that's why you queued up this question, because now we got a lot to talk about. But it's different for some as well. Not every restaurant is going to be the same, and the formula is a little different, one from the next as well.
Yeah, I will say when it comes to entrepreneurship, I would say one of the most businesses that are started, or most people tend to start, is a restaurant.
Which is weird because it seems like restaurants are risky.
It's one of it's the most risky out of all of them, because it's just, I think some people have the misconception sometimes, or at least the people I've seen or have met, they cook one thing really good at home, and then some friend tells them, "Oh, you should sell this. You should start a restaurant." Because
that's all it takes, right, John?
Because they cooked one dish good.
We're all set. Are we done then?
I feel like that's exactly what happened with Raising Cane's. It's like they were like, we make really good chicken tenders. Do we do anything else? Well, no. Let's just do this.
So, not that it can't happen, because I'm sure there are restaurant tours that have started where the person made a really great dish and was able to replicate that.
KFC started that way.
Yeah.
At a gas station.
Secret spices.
I don't recommend that now for your health benefit. But that being said, it's one of the most risky businesses, and a lot of times I feel like people just don't do the due diligence or don't understand what it takes. All the ebbs and flows from, because at the end of the day, it's, yes, you have a restaurant, but then there's the business component to make it successful, plus the marketing component to take it to the next step and to be profitable, because you got payroll, you got insurance, rent, food pricing you got to deal with, the menu creation, all that stuff, and I really want to talk about that.
It's really interesting having two remarkable young sons, John and Joshua. It sounds like you're talking about raising a family, right? Because you think about, you get into it and you're like, what have we done? That's exactly what I said when John was born. And this little screamy guy was in my arms, and I'm like, what have we done?
What did we do?
But the bottom line is, similarly, you hear people say that a lot about their restaurant. Oh, this is my baby. Think about that. And it's very similar. You can either be really prepared as best as you can be prepared for something that's so life-changing like restaurant or raising a child, but they both take a lot of pre-work to be good at it. Let's just say that. Plus,
there's the culture from the employee culture.
Yes.
Because if you don't have that, and if you're like a dick boss, because I've seen where business, and I could be wrong, I guess just the way you manage people, if you micromanage someone, obviously they're not going to do really well. But I've seen, we've been to restaurants where people, they actually like going to work.
Sure.
And then, or they love working for this place because they don't feel micromanaged. And then there's other
We
bars.
saw that with Grisette, right?
Oh yeah,
That was such a cool experience. Like all the people there were,
and they stay there too. They don't have high turnover. Like you've been to Grisette,
and
and when we spoke with Donnie, he did mention his people stay, and they don't go anywhere. And it's not like he's paying them an exorbitant amount of more money. It's about average, I would assume, but it's the culture and the way he treats his employees. So, but then you go to your average, most franchise location, you don't see that. And you get high turnover. So
there's something really important in what you're saying, though, because the culture is it is fostered by the team, by the staff, by the originator of their concept, because that theme sort of resonates. If it's well connected to marketing, you, the viewer, or you, the participant, or the diner, are going to feel that culture. You're going to sense it just from the initial, what was your first aha moment? Was it on the web? Was it in print? Was it driving by? But you felt that culture somehow, which was part of the allure. And that's trainable. It's a lexicon. I call it, you're learning a lexicon when you get a job at a restaurant. You're learning a language. And once you've got that down, and if you have sort of, I call it the gift of hospitality. If you're in it to win it, you probably have a gift that you get really happy to serve people. Great restaurants have that in their staff, in their teams.
Yeah. So let me help me understand the pieces of a restaurant, if you will. Okay. So let's say I'm someone who has just a banging recipe for something, and just like I have a passion and a drive to start a restaurant. What are the other pieces? Because most people, when at least I do, when I think of a restaurant, I think of showing up somewhere to cook every day. And or just like you think about the operation. What are the factors of a restaurant? We all know that there's kitchen and recipes and culinary know-how. What's the rest of the back of the house? Like, I guess what's the 90% of the iceberg? Because we see the 10%.
Yeah, you see the very, very top of it. So you kind of start at the beginning, right? There's the development. Like you said something about the recipe, but it goes well beyond that. I had an agency here in town for about 14 years prior to COVID called Core Food Innovation. And it was a double entendre, core being the formula, the innovation is right at the middle of every concept, right? And when you're doing a restaurant, whether it's something that's going to go multiply itself to have many locations, or if it's just a one-off, you have to develop a recipe that's going to stay the same. You want consistency. You develop a following, and you change 2 ingredients in that recipe, and they're going to notice it if they fall in love with whatever that dish is. So begins at the formula. Like you said, I got a great dish, or I've got a great cuisine, or I'm good at something. That's just the beginning. That's the very beginning. So then it's the commercialization of that. So now you take that recipe, and you might have to tweak some of the steps and processes that when you get in a big restaurant kitchen, now I can replicate it the same way I did at home when I first invented it. So this commercialization phase. So that's a bit of it too, right? Then in that development phase, quite often your development team has a front and back of the house element where then the front of the house is trying to round out that experience. So it's like an orchestra, right? So you might be great at the flute, but this song that you wrote is nothing without the bass of a tuba or a French horn section that gives it that tinny kind of military sound, and percussion and piano and all of that. So that's the rest of the development team that's going to give the look and feel that's going to accentuate the experience and make that food mean something.
Yeah, I guess you really have to. I think it seems like from what you're saying, you have to learn to be successful at more than one thing. Like having like a single, like if you're really good at service, you can't serve people feces and expect them to want to be there.
Put it, yeah.
Right,
I mean,
but then you can't have
people eat McDonald's. Still. Just saying.
Given my position, I'm going to tiptoe a little bit around naming too many other big chains.
So to introduce John, get into his expertise here. John works for Integra Procurement Services. He's the head of culinary. And John, can you kind of elaborate more on what Integra does, and then we'll get back more into these restaurant questions. But what does Integra serve in the space for restaurants and hospitality, et cetera, et cetera?
Great question. Integra is the world's largest GPO. GPO stands for Group Purchasing Organization. So this happens in a lot of industries that you've got conglomerations of purchasing that an organization like ours has amassed such buying power that we have the ability to negotiate prices down to the degree that a small one-off restaurateur to a large chain is going to appreciate our buying volume. We're $29 billion per annum. So we have the ability to go negotiate great pricing, as well as provide a lot of services to that restaurateur that they may not have that whole development team we were just talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm their corporate chef. I just happen to be in a different building for all intent and purpose. But I'm such a small piece of this. We have negotiators that are working with food manufacturers to get amazing pricing for our clients. We have food experts that will do nothing but analyze your purchases and show you how to purchase smarter, purchase better. And we do this all over the world. The U.S. is only a small facet of that company. And we're a direct department of Sodexo, one of the world's largest contract feeding organizations as well. So that's where a lot of our buying power comes from as well. French-based, based in France, and our power here in the United States is really remarkable. And I'm based right here in the Richmond, Virginia market.
So, so for someone who doesn't understand a group purchasing, tell me if I'm explaining this correctly.
Yeah, give it a shot.
So if I'm if I'm a restaurant owner and I'm trying to buy chicken, right? If I'm purchasing in the small quantity that my one restaurant is able to stock and to hold until before and sell before expiration, I'm only going to be limited by a certain amount that I can buy at once, which means my price is higher than McDonald's, who's going to buy 20 million farms and just and like own all the cattle, and they're because of the buying in bulk, they get a better price. So Integra buys at price, buys in bulk, so that you can buy from Integra and get a much better price than you would have by going directly to a source.
Exactly.
So you get a bulk price advantage by going with a purchaser.
Exactly. So to break this down really simply, I'll tell folks who just still don't get it. Think of us as sort of a Costco to the restaurant industry. However, you don't pay a fee to be our partner. Your volume is helping to substantiate what we do as a business. So your participation in the program is you kind of paying your fee, if you will, but no money comes out of any of our restaurants' pockets to us. So they're automatically a partner. Their partnership helps our volume. So you just said whatever your restaurant is using, if you've got 10 of those restaurants, you still have volume. You've got good volume, but that's now contributing to our massive volume. So that's how we sort of appreciate you as a customer. Mm-hmm. You help us grow. We help you with savings.
Right.
Instant savings, too.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's not like because some people would not even know about a service like Integra. I would assume if you want to start a restaurant and you're very green in the space, you think you just go to the grocery store and buy all your food.
Oh God, and that seems like it would be a disaster.
Like I'm sure you've seen what's that, Kitchen Nightmares, where people literally just where they're going to the store buying frozen food and then just reheating it up and selling it.
Mm.
I've never seen that, but that's wild.
That show's scary as far as like, is that type of food I'm eating?
Yeah.
That's the one with Gordon Ramsay. But he goes back there and he sees like all the food is just frozen, and all they do is sometimes reheat it up, or I've even seen where they put it in the microwave and then they serve it, and people are eating it thinking it's delicious, and then they put whatever margin on top of it. So versus I'm assuming what they're getting from Integra is more fresh. I'm assuming they have the choice of organic versus your general poultry.
Probably have a lot of choices. Probably a lot of scale too. I would have to imagine.
Absolutely.
If you want to be like a super high end restaurant, I mean, you guys are probably able to satisfy that.
I had a really great exercise with one of our hotel clients that helps define a little bit of what you're saying, because he is a part of a hotel group that manages, say, boutique hotels all the way down to almost like a quick business stay where you get your free breakfast. So think about that difference of food service.
Mm-hmm.
a free breakfast sandwich versus a fine dining boutique environment.
Yeah.
So he really wanted to break out his purchasing so he knew, regardless of the location, he had sort of a good, better, best opportunity. So we specified, usually for a chain, you're specifying, one quality of chicken or one quality of beef patty or whatever that might be. He specified 3 because he sort of had those 3 different economies within his hotel group.
Yeah, you don't serve the same thing at Ruth's Chris as you do at a cafeteria.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Well put.
I would hope not.
Well put. Yeah, but that variety also sort of fetters out into all of the other services. So we span out into uniforms to, these services that'll come in and clean all the carpets for you, in the middle of the night if you've got a big facility, and
Really?
even staffing.
Interesting.
Even staffing, yeah. So uniform, anything that you need as a restaurateur, we cover it. We really do. We'll bring you that service, and we've got an entire department that's specifically dedicated to something we call local and direct. That means you're not just getting from the big distributor, all of your stuff in one truck. You might want a local fish market. You might want local beef or something like that. So we go so far as to negotiate those local deals as well. But we come in with our big, powerful brand, and we promise them more volume than they would have gotten just selling to the one restaurant.
So, what about financing? And does Integra have, I would say, access to that, or they can have, key people they can refer you to, or what's the best route for someone to go that has a restaurant idea? They have a concept. What is needed for someone? Let's say they don't have much money. What are the routes someone can go to? Is it raising money? Are they asking money from family members? Are they getting a bank loan? Are there actually services out there that'll help fund your restaurant? What is the process for that for someone that doesn't have access to money?
Yeah, excellent question. So I'll give this to you from my chair today, and things have shifted a lot in the last few years because of what we've all seen happening. But first and foremost, Integra won't do that, and we're not in the business of finance from that purview. But you named a few important ones. There are, surprisingly, there are businesses, lenders that are likely to be more restaurant friendly. You're going to have to do a little hunting there. It helps to be connected to developers, commercial realtors know a lot of who those people are. Networking is key.
It's all about who you know.
There's a really big deal that you started talking to me about in the beginning about how do you start a restaurant, and some things I can say. First of all, when I had my agency, one of the first steps I did with anybody come to me saying, "Hey, I want to start a restaurant. Can you help me?" Like, of course we could. We were a full service agency. The first thing I did was try to talk them out of it. You said it at the beginning, how risky is this business? It's super risky. And I literally tried talking people out of it. Like, just don't.
That's really interesting because Matt Damon does the same thing whenever friends and relatives, family members ask him about or being interested in going into acting. He said,
Don't do it.
He says, because if you can't face the discouragement of someone you respect telling you don't do it, if you can't muscle through that, you're not tough enough.
Sure.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Gotta have thick skin.
And it that's a really good way to put it. And it helps them to sort of synthesize and get really sharp on their elevator speech, because that's what it's going to take too. For any kind of funding, any kind of evergreen space that you need to get into and have somebody relinquish money for something is high risk as a restaurant. You got to have your homework done. Business plan, marketing plan, all in place, and then you're ready to start going around and asking and pleading for money.
Essentially become obsessed with the knowledge base of starting a restaurant. So on that note then, would you recommend, since 2023 is, I would say it's probably a lot harder to start a restaurant nowadays than it was, say, 5 years ago, would you recommend someone start a food truck first as a concept, then move to the brick and mortar? Because I've seen that happen where people, even pre-2020, people would start a food truck, and once they've done really well, I've seen them move to a brick and mortar. But then sometimes the brick and mortar fails. Was it just because the novelty of the food truck, because they're going to where the customers were? It's just, what do you recommend that? What's your thoughts on food trucks? Does Integra supply any are there any food trucks that have franchises where it's multiple? I'm just curious. I just don't know.
I think again that's a lot of connecting people within our organization, but we don't really create something to then be franchised. Spare one item, and I'll talk about that in a little later. I certainly don't want this to turn into my commercial because I really think there's a lot of other things to talk about regarding restaurants. But you touched on something that I would recommend. If it's something so obscure, somebody who's really embracing some kind of carnival cuisine,
grilled cheese,
fried stick of butter,
fried grilled cheese.
I'm making that up, but yeah. But it's a great way to test the water with minimal cash outlay and minimal staffing, right? Most of these guys or gals that are doing it are them and a prep person or them and their spouse or partner, and there's very little risk. Okay, so I popped $50,000 in a used food truck, and it didn't work.
Versus $500,000.
That sounds like a lot of money, but in the restaurant industry, that's small peanuts.
Yeah,
$50,000 is nothing in the restaurant industry.
What would
equipment and building and all of that. So,
what would you say if you had a restaurant idea and it is going to be brick and mortar, not going the car route?
Yeah.
What would you recommend having a good? Because I've seen blog articles do. Oh, you need 250,000. Oh, you need $500,000. Oh, you need $1 million. What's a good around? Obviously, it depends on your concept and how lavish you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
But like that one place that just opened up that I forget what it's called, but not Torchy's. It's a bar, it's a restaurant, but it has all these games involved, and they spent $8 million on the facility. I mean, it's awesome, but $8 million, that's not your average first time restaurateur. But this is the first concept for that guy, I believe. What would you recommend as a good? Is it $500,000? What should you take into account? That's a better question. What should you take into account, and to get to that number that you need to fulfill the launch, and then say 6 to 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
I know we can get into a lot more questions in the restaurant aspect, but just because I know a lot of people when they want to start a restaurant, money is the first thing that's the barrier.
It's the big barrier.
And knowing the right amount of money, because I had a person I know, he had a restaurant concept he was trying to explain to me. It was with video games. People would come there and play, and then they could eat and drink, console games, stuff they have at home, or even even arcade games. And he said he was going to do it for $100,000. I'm like, are you insane? He's like, oh yeah, this would last 6 months. I've done the math. I'm like, no, you haven't. And I'm not even in the restaurant business, and I could tell you that's probably going to fail.
Sure.
And you, before this
sounds
podcast,
like two separate things.
You need to, I feel like for that, you need to be in the right location. Because there was a concept he was going off of, but that concept was in Vegas. Vegas is Vegas.
Yeah.
You're in Buffalo, New York. For this particular guy I'm talking about. So could it be successful there? Yeah, I just think his money's off by $500,000.
Yeah, usually when there's a layman's shot out at, hey, I'm going to do this, and they're thinking I'm going to need, for rounded terms, let's just say, I think I'm going to need $100,000. I'll say you need 4 times that, minimally, because at $100,000, this is something very small, minimal build out. Maybe he's picking up a restaurant that shut down, so he's got minimal build out. Maybe he's slapping some paint on the wall, and he thinks he's got enough operating capital to get him through the first, what did he tell you, 6 months?
Yeah.
He's going to need 4 times that. Salaries aren't what they used to be. You're paying wait staff now. You're paying salaries to wait staff.
And when will you make a profit?
Yeah.
He calculated that too.
I think it was really, really good terms back in the day. I'm going to date myself, but I came up in this thing right out of the Marine Corps. Came up in the food industry in the 90s, and it was a nice thing to say. We put 10 or 15% in the bank. That was profit. 10 or 15%.
That's
in the
tough.
Bank. And you were like big high
That's
fiving
tough.
and woo,
Makes me love my industry.
Yeah, things change a lot. And I think there's a lot of money on the table out there still. But we were talking about in the very beginning. It's about the whole experience.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's about there's a place in Chicago. I don't even know if it's there anymore. I'm from Chicago, but there's a place called Johnny Rockets that their whole thing was how rude could they be to you when you
I've
walk
seen
in?
that.
They're like, come on, step up. The line's right there. What are you waiting on? And then they make you wait, and they're like, what? What do you want? I'm waiting for you now. But they've created a negative experience that's part of the allure. But whatever that whole experience is, you've got to create that. And so sometimes it's low budget. But there's a magic, sort of a magical size now that a lot of guys that I respect, Taza Kitchens, Chris Sway with Eat Restaurant Group. I love what they're doing. These guys are not going after gigantic footprints like we used to back in the 90s. They're going after this maybe 4,000 square foot. I'm just going to say that as an average size. 4,000 square feet of space, a tight kitchen, a really well-trained kitchen staff, and good quick servers with bistro-style cuisine. That means it's as soon as it's ready, it comes out to the table. There's not this whole, oh, here's your appetizer, here's this. It's bistro-style service. It's like fire it and go. If you can do that, you can pull $6 million a year. I see them doing it left and right. They're doing it all over the place.
Can you bring up red salt from Eat Restaurant Group, Aaron?
And I'm not quoting any of these guys' sales. Some of that's proprietary information. I wouldn't want to talk about it, but talking about some guys that I respect a lot. And this is Eat right here.
That's pretty.
Red Salt. I call it their flagship. They've got beautiful locations, but I call this their flagship because it's just one of the most gorgeous build-outs that I've seen in a long time. He literally has red salt as some of the windows, so the sun's shining through it.
That's cool.
He's essentially like just remarkable steaks, like great American steakhouse, but it has this really ultra-modern Japanese bent to it with just some of the best sushi I've ever had. And I've been to Japan many times, so I'm stacking heavy against it. And these guys do a great job. Really great job.
Maybe he can convince me of liking sushi. I've had cheap, mid-range, and expensive. I just can't do it.
I love all
Maybe
of it.
You know, touching back on a question you asked earlier too, what is it's hard. We could be here for a day and talking about what does it take to be successful. And one of the things I'll say about the other group I mentioned, Taza. When I had the agency, we were working with them during launch of that brand. And one of the smartest things I've ever seen done, they did it beautifully when they were about to open. It was probably about 6 months before they opened. We were doing some of the R&D work in my test kitchen up in Ashland. And they were shooting food already 6 months before we were even open. And they just started to go bonkers with social media. So essentially, consumers were tasting the experience already with their eyes and their ears, and they had lines.
And they couldn't have it yet.
Yeah, they
So it
couldn't
made
have
you
it
want
yet.
it.
There was
Oh,
built-in allure, and
Smart.
for you guys as a marketing agency, it's a huge tip to really step up the game on any restaurants you're working with. Start marketing as early as you can. I don't care if we didn't break ground yet. Find a test kitchen, start practicing your food, start shooting it, talking about it. Bring groups in, let them taste it. Let those people start talking about it on social media, and you've got built-in allure. I can't think of a day of the week I don't go to Taza Kitchens. Like there's 3 of them in town here that they're not packed.
It's true.
I bring people there on business, and they're like, "It's a Monday. What are they doing so thick?" Like it's success, and they're consistent. One of the things I love about Chris Sway's places and about Taza is consistency. Like with Taza, I was there during opening, so I can honestly say the food quality is right where it was when we trained it in. Like that salad is as fresh and as on point to the recipe as it was when we trained some of those menu items in. Some of them have stuck. They've got talented chefs there at Taza. They're great operators, and they've done a lot of additions and some evolution to the menu that's way out of my hands. But I think that their success began before they ever opened because of smart marketing.
So let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
It was a year and some change ago that I did I was with you at a chef's competition in Philadelphia.
Yep.
One of my favorite jobs ever. And it was really interesting because I was around you with like a ton of other chefs, and you guys were just talking about restaurant industry, and you started swapping stories.
Yep.
And then some wild stories. There's some wild stories when it
there
comes to restaurants. Like there was one guy said that there was he walked into the kitchen and the chef was like overdosed on the floor. Like that's wild.
I've
okay.
heard that one. Yeah.
And then and then he just got up and continued to cook. But anyway, so it seems like, and now tell me, it seems like the restaurant industry kind of gets a hold of people. Would you say that's correct?
Absolutely.
And so now, okay, looking at all the careers that life is the open table of, okay, and all the different career paths. Why do you think working in restaurants and cooking and that industry, why do you think it grips people the way it does?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of there's a bit of the runner's high, if you will, for anybody who's worked on a line or worked in a dining room. Some folks will be like, well, what are you so upset about? Like, no, not upset. I'm loving this. I'm in my zone. You just, you get in a zone and you're so focused on your flavors and the plate presentation that in the kitchen you really just lock in and you almost don't notice the noise around you. You're at your station, you're working, and it's hard to get that love of that feeling out of you. I think that's part of it. I think there's also a desire to watch people be pleased. Years and years ago, I dated a gal who was an engineer back when I was the corporate chef for Motorola. And so she was at Motorola engineering, working on the, what was it? The Honda V6 Accord, the chip for that, programming it and all this. So when are you going to finish that? And it was like, we're thinking in about a year and a half we'll be done with it. And I'm just like, I'm so out. Not that I think there's anything wrong with that type of an occupation. I think it's remarkable. We need that. But me personally, I think a lot of people in the food industry are like this. I like to have a dream at night of some crazy dish, some crazy flavors, some great plate presentation. Get up in the morning, think about how I'm going to execute that on the commute in, get to the restaurant, execute it, serve it, go in the dining room and watch people appreciate it and taste it and see the smile on their face, go to sleep that night and do it all over again the next day.
Yeah.
It's instant gratification for me from my creative side to see someone really appreciate what you're doing. So many people find the periphery of the food industry in sales and marketing and support jobs because they came from the roots of being either kitchen or front of the house. And they'll never get away from it because they love it too much for some of the reasons we're talking about. And so that's a lot of our professional regimen at Integra too, is this might be a person in a suit going on a sales presentation or meeting with a client or what have you, but secretly that guy or that gal used to be a chef.
Yeah.
Or that gal used to be the GM in this big hotel or this big restaurant. And now she's doing this. She's still in the industry, still appreciating what she loved about it. But she's helping people with all that knowledge she attained during that powerful career.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's just it's interesting how it does that to people, how it gets a hold of people.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, and like the amount of time that like some GMs put into restaurants is wild to me. It's wild. Like they're
60-hour work week is light.
Yeah.
Very light.
Yeah. And it's shocking to me that, like, I mean, it's obvious it can't be about the money. Like, it can't be, because like if you were to put 60 hours a week into nearly any other industry, you're gonna be killing it.
Yeah.
But then GMs are like, that's what we need to do to stay afloat.
Sure.
Whew.
Sure.
That's a lot of work. So it's got to be coming from something other than just money, and there's got to be a passion for it. And I just wonder, like, what is that passion? Because that makes you pay attention to stuff to me.
Well,
Like,
because if money is your only the only outcome that you have from a satisfaction standpoint, you'll have none of it.
and so satisfaction, like, so do you see it as a career field with a high amount of satisfaction?
Oh, I think so. Because of that, because of those small windows, like I just told you, that evolution of an idea for me when I was in regular operations in restaurants or in food service or it goes all the way back to my very beginnings as a young Marine in food service, serving other jarheads, and having the opportunity to go to Johnson & Wales University when they had a campus here in Norfolk, Virginia. And I took that knowledge to our dining facility all the time. And I was a chief cook at the time. That means you're in charge of your watch. And people knew when we were on, and they were seeking out because they knew, oh, this guy's in baking class now because our pies are smoking. And we'd treat him with fresh made donuts and cinnamon rolls in the morning that we were making from scratch as Marines.
Hey,
That's cool.
An army marches on his stomach.
Right?
That's cool.
So you get that, again, that satisfaction, that instant gratification, and it's hard to let that go. You get creative in the different degrees or positions that you find yourself in the food industry, but I know some of the folks that are in these, call it peripheral roles now, like we might be considered as Integra, that they're supporting clients, they're coaching clients, they're helping them buy smarter, they're helping them get in front of their numbers and really project their purchases and really understand finances when sometimes they don't really have their arms around it. And they get to go to bed at night knowing we helped a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's more than just smart buying. It's all of the consultation that we provide, too, because we can slow the world down. We're not on the line. We have that power to slow the world down from a purchasing purview, take a look at their business, and bring them some facts that they might not see because you don't see the forest from the trees.
Yeah. Yeah, that seems like it would be, it seems like an industry where that would be really easy to happen, because that happens a lot in my industry. Like, it's really easy to get to where you're just obsessed about the image, right? And I get this way for sure.
Yeah.
You just get crazy obsessed with having the best image possible and like workflows to make that happen, and then it goes like 6 months go by and like you haven't done billing. and you
I know this from a fact. When Aaron sends me invoices from 6 months ago, and I'm like, wait, I owe you how much money?
I thought we already took care of that.
Yeah. Getting and so like I see some similarities between image.
It's the feast and famine.
Yeah, you can become so singularly focused on the thing you like the most about your industry that you can leave behind the thing that's really making it keep working.
Sure.
Yeah. But anyway, so do you miss it? Do you miss being in the kitchen? Now I know you're still in the kitchen. You're still inventing recipes. You're still doing some really cool stuff.
I'm in my chef coat today.
Yeah. So one shoot, not this was maybe 8 months ago. One shoot, we walked in and John had breakfast for us, and he has this smoked honey thing.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and then they drizzle smoked honey on bacon, and oh my God, forget the diet that you thought you were on.
See,
because it's
you just gave me why I stick to this industry there. Just to be able to create a flavor that folks are just like, whoa, that's good stuff. So
I knew exactly what she was going to. Hey, let's go. Breakfast. Smoked
and then,
honey.
And don't let me go without mentioning that Kyle made Kyle was his assistant. Kyle made French press that same morning, French press coffee, and I was just like, where did I show up today?
Where are we?
Where are I? Am I here to work, or am I just here to just like be pampered?
So I do miss it. One of the great things that we're able to do as Integras Go, and it's important, it's almost compulsory for me to spend time in our clients' kitchens with them. I'm most effective to them when I understand what equipment they cook with on a regular basis, what some of their pressure points are, where their pain points are, kind of be their fairy godmother, godfather in a way that I can take their wishes and dreams and kind of make them come true. Like, gosh, it's loud in here. Our tickets are flying past us. We miss them sometimes. Here's a great system that we promote that prints the tickets out at every station. It's very quiet. No one's yelling anymore. The ticket comes up. You're also watching on a screen how much time is left until that dish is supposed to get served. You're tapping the screen to say, I put it up. So now everybody all over the kitchen sees you're done with your dish. Sometimes it then has to go to another station to put the hot bacon on. So that kind of feeling the kitchen for what it's great at, what it's good at, and what it maybe not so good at, it allows us to be effective. And being physically in kitchens like that is sort of still helping me stay fed with that urge to want to be in the kitchens. And then I stodge sometimes. I might be in a kitchen here in Richmond once in a while because I've got a lot of friends, and sometimes I want the burns on my arms again, so I go work a broiler for them for the night.
Oh, cool.
It's a great little kitchen up in Fredericksburg called Tapario. Just like it sounds, tapa being something on top, and then Rio being the river. They're right there in downtown Fredericksburg, and they do beautiful tapas. And they sort of have mashed up tapas with Italian, and it's a little family-run location. And I get to go up there every now and then and throw my whites on and give them a hand in the kitchen,
Yeah.
create some new dishes for them, and so on.
That's cool. That's
Yeah.
cool. So yeah, I found, so I worked for Starbucks for 4 years, and there's a lot of
That's right.
they
We have
treat
that in common.
yeah they treat Starbucks very much like a restaurant, and it's remarkable how similar Starbucks is to fast food
Just not good at
in terms
getting
of
the names down.
yeah. But like I remember like being on bar, right? So being on bar is the kitchen equivalent of being a line cook.
Yeah.
And so just like the amount of things that are going through your head, and and sometimes I miss going back to like just being so immersed that there is no other thought in the world in your head
Sure.
other than like putting things out and just like process. And it's a little bit of a narcotic because like it doesn't matter what you brought in with you that day, like whatever kind of life you have, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like for 6 hours, 6 to 8, whatever, however long you're on there, like nothing matters except like getting that done and people loving that. Yeah. So I kind of get that, but I think that there's so I wonder, like the place you're at now, do you find that to be more satisfying? Because that was too fast for me, honestly. And so I was not a very good bar when I worked for Starbucks. I was better at the a lot of the other stuff.
Sure.
But I found that there's a sweet spot for how fast I want to turn something over creatively.
Sure.
And do you like the speed you're at now? Or do you go through phases?
Yeah, I think I'm far from the autumn of my career. You know, I have a lot left that I want to do, but I think I'm enjoying the more consultative nature to which we behave. Taking the time to think something through for a client, really trying to blow holes and try to figure out and cross-analyze what's going wrong in a kitchen and help them identify those problems and create solutions for them. That takes a little bit of a slower pace for sure, and I can appreciate that. It's maybe more regular hours. I won't say they're not rigorous. We still have to put the show on. That space that we're in is pretty large, as you know. You've been there many times, both of you, and it's a lot to work that space. It's a lot to still execute recipes and for us, it's very prescriptive. And what I mean by that is we're not just loosey-goosey throwing stuff in a pan and cooking it up. You know, every client is going to have different specifications, different portion sizes, different garnish style. You can have something as highbrow as a high-end hotel in there, and the very next day we might be doing something for a cinema that serves hot dogs and fries and popcorn.
Yeah, I remember one day we did fries.
Yeah,
we did French fries.
And your soundbite and having the guy.
Yeah, we had
to.
we were recording like kind of
the crunch.
The crunch of a certain fry because there was a coating on the fry that keeps it crispy. After it's been in like steamed in a to-go box.
You brought something up earlier, Ryan. You said something about 2023 and restaurants today. You know. The other thing that we're adapting to right now is societal change. I'll give you a crazy for example. So this is statistics. So canned fish, thanks to social media, canned fish went up 10% in gross sales last year, which is equivalent to about $1.9 billion.
Canned
fish.
Like tuna?
Yeah. Why? Just go look that up. Now, actually, all of your electronics in here are hearing us talk about this, so you're probably going to have plenty of canned fish ads on Facebook and whatever other social media you tend to watch. But it was marketed differently. I'm not talking about the tuna in the grocery store. I'm talking about products you can't even get from the grocery store, but some young healthy gal or some really buff young guy is eating this fish from the can saying it's the finest anywhere. Get this, it's coming from the Nordic or the Atlantic or wherever it's coming from. It's the best. And it's just gone like this. So That's a little tiny indulgence that, maybe people are seeing it as now part of charcuterie, which is a big deal. And it's, you know,
The adult lunchbox.
yeah, the adult
The adult
lunchbox.
lunchable.
But that's just one example of some of the changes we've seen in how people are eating. Takeout, it's something else that we specialize
Takeout has
in.
gotten wild.
Oh yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
But that's something we
On
specialize
pricing,
in
too.
too. Is just all of the packaging that goes into that. That's another thing. If you're opening a restaurant, it's something that a great chain would have taken the time to think this through. Let me give you for example. So you come in, I got the best burgers in town, the best fries. I'm just saying that because you were just mentioning fries, and the best sauces and my burgers. You love my stuff. You love my burgers. You come every 2 days. You're in there. Then you take it to go one day, and you're like,
Yeah, fries usually to
Yep.
go are like terrible.
this is sad news. And so you're like, nah, never again.
There's
you
very
know?
few foods that I like takeout
Yeah.
from.
Well, and then now you're
Peter
not,
Chang's is a champ.
now you're going to go back
Chinese
once a
food,
week
yeah.
because you're like, it wasn't so great, and you're judging it on how it was to go.
Yeah. Ugh.
So that's work to be done on behalf of the operator, so they can take the time, understand, do some tests, do the homework. It's worth the homework. Millions of dollars worth the homework if you do it right. And you figure out, okay, wait a minute. Now I got to switch up because that packaging was designed for the guy that just went in his car and ate because he's in a rush. And 80% of my sales was dine in. Now 80% is takeout. And
Is
people
that-
are driving, back to the office. They want to eat at home in front of their computer. That behavior has shot just to the sky. So
See,
now I need packaging that's not going to deteriorate the quality, but at least maintain the quality of the food. So it's the materials. I have to be earthwise. I want my fries to stay crisp longer. So there's a bunch of things that go into that decision-making process now, and it takes some time to do the testing. But I'm telling you, look at the camera. Where's my camera? Do the testing. If you don't use us to do the testing for you, do the damn testing, because your customers are going to come back. If you did. If you didn't, they're not coming back.
Yeah.
Screw your fries.
So let me ask you this. You're in a really interesting position from 2020.
Yes.
Okay, you probably saw numbers of food purchased and like ebb and flow.
Oh, yeah.
So now takeout has become a monster. We've seen a new kind of restaurant that is just takeout. Like they just exist in like kitchens that are rented out, and that's really interesting. Like that's just a really interesting thing that they're just kind of existing as a takeout option. That
You know the name for that?
No, I don't.
Ghost kitchen.
Ghost kitchen.
That's
Okay.
That term is
Yeah.
ghost kitchen.
Mr. Beast's burger
Yes.
is uses ghost kitchens.
Yeah.
And that's really
So like if you do Mr. Beast, I looked it up because you just have to because you can only do Mr. Beast from Grubhub or DoorDash.
mhm.
I think actually maybe just on Grubhub, but you could see the address. And if you get a Mr. Beast burger here in Richmond, you're buying a Red Robin burger. It's just rebranded with Mr. Beast packaging.
interesting.
And now he does have a brick and mortar location now, and it broke all records. I
Here?
think no, it's in I forget what mall it's in.
How would it be? Why would the only one be in Richmond?
Yeah, they had over 10,000 people in line
Wow.
to get a Mr. Beast burger. Now, of course, they couldn't serve everyone. They got close to it, which is also a
Wow.
feat on its own.
Yeah.
And then the last person, I think he offered, because Mr. Beast is, do you know who Mr. Beast is?
I've read a bit about this. Yeah. I think
He's
we talk about
The
it.
most watched YouTuber on the planet. He's got
Mhm.
over 100+ million subscribers. Guy's insane as far as what he does and what he also charges from an ad read for some of his videos. But anyways, like these burgers are, he doesn't have his own like overhead. It's just outsourced. And I think it kept some of these restaurants afloat during 2020
Sure.
with what he was doing. And a couple other celebrities have done the same, but its novelty was either worn off. This is still active because it's Mr. Beast.
Yeah.
But you're getting here at least it's a Red Robin burger,
So it's Red Robin ingredients.
but it's delivery
made-
only.
But
Yeah.
But for the benefit of somebody who doesn't really know this depth of that we're going into right now, let's give some context to this. So I'll be brief, but so back up. COVID shut everything down. some things that were teetering to begin with,
Mm-hmm.
right before COVID. Those are the first ones to go.
Yeah.
They shut their doors, right? They weren't reinventing. They weren't contemporary. They
had poor marketing
had
beforehand.
bad marketing, all that. So a great example is just like because of what happened, and that's not to their failure, it's just societal change. Let's just say, for example, maybe a Courtyard around here had a little restaurant in the lobby, right? And they did a decent business. They sold some breakfast, they sold some lunch, they sold a banquet or two once in a while, catered, and all of a sudden the kitchen's dead empty because nobody's staying there, nobody's business traveling. So they're like, we got to keep this place open. We're selling a few beds, we're paying our mortgage, but what are we going to do? We got this empty kitchen. So some really smart folks went around to empty kitchens and said, I can bring you some revenue back, and I can get your cooks back to work. I'll do all the marketing. I'll market the daylights out of this. All I need you to do is make it, and as soon as what'd you say earlier? Grubhub?
Grubhub, yeah.
Mr. Grubhub shows up, hand him the bag. That's all you got to do, and I'll give you whatever. Who knows what these deals look like? I'll give you 25% of the cut, or I'll give you 50%, whatever it might look like. Maybe he's only taking 15%. The rest goes to the house. I don't know. I don't know what those deals look like personally, but that regenerated business to the restaurants that were challenged. It threw more money at the ones that weren't challenged, because I don't think Red Robin was hurting. They weren't. The ones I saw in the Richmond greater market were open and still thriving, post-COVID. So it probably just helped breathe some nice, cool air across their bank account and gave them some relief, kept them doing what they're used to doing.
Right.
They just had to keep 2 bags.
Right.
Probably a different menu slightly.
They have to make their burgers like
A
their
certain way.
burgers.
Yeah.
You're not getting exactly a Red Robin burger,
sure.
but it's just, in my opinion, it's still Red Robin because it's from that particular location.
Yeah, I need to get a Mr. Beast burger. From
I haven't
Red
done it
Robin
yet.
now. I want to do it now.
We'll do it next time for our next meeting. We'll
There you go.
Let's do.
We'll do Mr. Beast burgers and probably regret it.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's great because it's still around. But
Yeah,
But
Red
that's-
Robin's still good.
Yeah.
yeah,
But that's a huge, what we're talking about, this brand aside, this is a huge, I don't even know what the numbers are. I wish I did, but this is billions of dollars that were generated. That's what I talked about. The most resilient industry to me is the food industry because we kept it going.
Yeah.
So
When it didn't make sense.
what are
Yeah.
some, I would say, ideas or tactics you would recommend restaurants do to change, to adapt? Obviously, the to-go is one. So, like, I give an example. Not that 2020 did this, but, like, with frozen yogurt, like, when those chains started popping up, at first they were charging simply based off, cup size. Small, medium, large, and the price is the price. Now, someone got smart. They got rid of the small version, and they charge based on weight. So now, and their bottom line actually, the sales went up because people just had this inclination of filling the cup all the way up to the top.
Mm-hmm.
And when they got to the counter and the price came up, and it actually ended up being more than what it would have been if it was based off, the median price. But now that guilt is on you, like, oh, okay, I'm going to do it anyway. Like, no one just says no because they put all the other stuff on it. And the way they set their whole line up is the highest margin items first, which is the yogurt. And then the most expensive items that they cost, where they probably break even if not lose money, is like the fresh fruit,
Sure.
like strawberries and blueberries and all that stuff. And that's always at the end because by the time you've gone through all the dry ingredients, you've already filled everything up. So you can only put maybe 1 or 2 strawberries. But at the end, when you filled your entire cup up, because it's based on weight, you're paying like 2 times more than if it was the old model. Now I believe most yogurt places do that now. They do it based on the weight.
Sure.
Because but the guilt is now back on you. It's not on the restaurant, and you pay it anyways.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I'm some fat ass that probably shouldn't have done that. Next time I won't do it. So, it's that mentality. So, what do you think are some alterations or tips and tricks restaurants could do this year a bit differently to perform better, or ways to increase the bottom line?
So I just did this with a restaurant. No names. Spent some time working through, just walking the menu with them, asking them, what's your profit margin on this? First of all, they're like, what?
You don't know your numbers.
So they didn't know their numbers. So I got them knowing their numbers. And then I got them backing away from all the steaks they had on the menu. I didn't say take them all off, but just be really careful. It's one of the highest costs that you'll see in any commodity right now is beef, for whatever it's worth. Driven by government, driven by those who don't want you to eat beef anymore, driven by sheer distribution challenges and stockyard challenges and just issues with the animals themselves. But it's expensive, so pull a few items off. Get really great. I say reduce the menu down. Get great at all of the stuff then on your menu because you've got a few less items. So rationalize your menu. We call it rationalization. Take the things off that are just dogs. You don't make any money on it. You sell 2 a day. It's a pain in the you-know-what to inventory and keep the ingredients around. Kick it. Kick it. And if you get 5 complaints, to say, yeah, we'll bring that back as a limited time offer because a few of you like it. And then we use those LTOs, limited time offers, to test new things. So bring
like the McRib.
Bring them.
I'm just kidding. That's a terrible.
You couldn't say the pumpkin spice latte. You had to bring up the McRib. But reducing your menu down, really giving some flexibility to the menu. Giving having a taco. I mean, tacos are so popular. Having a taco section that you can bring in, new fish. Doesn't always have to be tilapia. Please stop serving tilapia so much. There's other fish in the sea. No, there's no drum roll. No, da-dump dump.
No. I think Aaron has a drum roll, but I don't think
or just a da-dump dump for a stupid joke.
it's one of those buttons on there.
Where there's an opportunity to have other proteins rotated in. Slow cooked pork shoulder. That's the other thing is look for those tertiary or less desirable cuts of meat as well. Pork shoulder's cheap, and a lot of folks who have like the oven I have in the studio, the big brick oven. Once you shut that thing off for the evening, it's still hot. The next morning, it'll still be 300 degrees. It's leftover energy. So occasionally we'll put pork shoulders in there, lots of onions and peppers and spices, a little bit of liqueur, cover it, throw it in the oven. That's off. But that leftover energy in that deck oven cooks it slowly overnight. Now I've got beautiful tacos the next day that my labor's like nothing because you didn't have to poke
I'm about it. I'm about it.
Yeah.
I'm about it. I'm about those tacos.
Making us hungry right now.
But doing things like that you can rotate different proteins in, which means now you're using a group like us to help watch the market for you. Hey, we're seeing some drop in price in chicken thighs. Use thighs. It's
Wingstop did that.
Yeah.
They started serving thighs, and they were delicious.
Well, and everybody goes to these teriyaki places and gets a beautiful teriyaki bowl. That's not a chicken breast. That's a thigh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
Because chicken thighs are cheaper.
They're less expensive. Frankly, there's more flavor to them. They're juicier.
Way more flavor.
Yeah.
Yeah, most Chinese food. Isn't most Chinese food that you get like General Tso's chicken? That's chicken thighs, right?
Typically, it's chicken thigh. Yeah, and that's just a bit of their indigenous food wisdom. I've been all over Asia. Philippines, the only one I haven't, but I've been everywhere in Asia, and it's just the preference. There's very little chicken breasts. I don't know what they're selling them to us, maybe, but there's very little chicken breast meat. It's mostly wings, legs, and thighs. Really, is the primary use of the poultry there.
Yeah, America has this weird fixation on white meat.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah.
Like I get it. Like I get it in terms of like macros,
neutrality. Like it's very neutral, so it takes on flavors well. That's probably one of the keys.
Yeah, I get it.
It looks cleaner in packaging. You look at chicken thighs, because then you have the bones ones, and then you can buy boneless. But aesthetically, the chicken breast looks more appeasing.
Yeah,
I don't know if that could be a reason why.
But then think about all the like every place that sells a chicken nugget, they're like all white meat, and I'm just like, I mean,
why do you got to say that?
Yeah, like why is that a benefit? Like I don't know. I mean, dark meat is more flavorful, but people
I thought
don't
McDonald's
seem to like
chicken
it.
nuggets was pink slime.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah,
I still eat them though.
Truly disgusting.
I think, I think you guys, you're in it. You're a marketing agency. I think marketing has had a lot to do with food behavior and food lexicon here in the United States. Cereal, breakfast cereal was a kind of a. I think it was designed by marketeers. I'm not kidding you. You can look it up. Because it's really not good for you to
Speaking
eat 12 ounces of starch first thing in the morning. It's actually horrible for your metabolism.
And the sugar content is shocking.
and I believe a study, literally, and this is what you're talking about, the study that just came out saying that cereal is healthier than steak.
Yeah, that's wild. Now,
What?
now, back in the day when cereal was when they first came out with the
Can you bring
when
that
the
up,
first cereal
Aaron?
was
The
was
USDA,
invented by
cereal healthier than steak?
Dr. Kellogg developed the first cereal, and it was and cereal was healthier than everything else they had because everything else they had was spoiled.
Sure.
They were selling market at they're selling meat at room temperature that sat for days.
Go
It
to
was
the
spoiled.
Snopes article.
They like in the original ketchup was called catsup. I mean, it's still called catsup in some places, but catsup was just
Yes.
like anything that we can put enough of in a bottle to mask the rotten taste of meat.
Oof.
And so cereal was the first commercially available was grape nuts, and then but
Love
that was
stuff. I love
that-
cereal. Don't get me wrong.
yeah. Well, grape nuts it was so controversial because it had 11 grams of sugar,
Go up.
and
so-
they're like that's today
come off
that's
that way.
nothing. You have
Yeah.
48 grams
Yeah.
of sugar per like.
So
It's
yeah,
wild.
here's the document
Okay.
where obviously watermelon, kale, but frosted mini wheats is healthier than ground beef. No, it's not.
They really just
The
making
amount
stuff
of
up.
sugar that it's in frosted mini again, I love frosted mini wheats. Don't get me wrong. I will never say no to that in breakfast if that's all they had. But
Orange juice. Orange
Orange-
juice is horrible. It's straight sugar.
But that blows my mind that almond M&Ms healthier than ground beef.
This is contextual, though. I mean,
Yeah,
this is highly subjective information. This
But-
is not science that you're looking at right now.
Not at all.
And nor am I speaking science if I say that cereal's bad for you. I think everything in moderation. Rotate your diet. I have cereal once a week, probably. I tend to prefer warm. If I go for it, I want some really coarse, steel cut oats. I love it.
Oh yeah.
I did
But
the
if I could find grape nuts, I'd probably buy it and enjoy
you
it. 'Cause
can.
I used to love that stuff.
Yeah, you can.
Can
It's
ya?
just
I don't shop.
it's intense.
Yeah.
It's
It sounds like you're crunching on gravel.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
fun as a
it's eating
kid,
straight
you know?
gravel. And
Yeah.
the first time I poured a bowl of grape nuts, it was like I poured what would be a normal bowl of cereal. Nope, don't go that route because you're gonna get halfway through that and be like, I
Fiber
cannot
load.
eat anything else.
No, but again, cereal's great rotational. I
Mhm.
just don't see it every single day. I think you're starching out.
Yeah,
Absolutely starching out.
yeah,
So-
and just and aside from the amount of sugar in most commercial, it's
most.
unbelievable.
In
It's
most, yeah.
unbelievable.
So, do you have any last-minute thoughts, though, for newbies, current restaurateurs, people in the business that you would give for 2023 to continue this year to be great? Because this year might be tough for some. I mean, it's always tough. The world's always ending, no matter at the end of the day.
Sure.
They're always saying they have been for the past 40 years. Last bit of one piece, not that there is one piece, but the one last thing that you would say could help someone.
Listen, you have to. If you're a viewer, you obviously know by my uniform, I'm here enjoying my leadership time with Integra Procurement Services. We would never tell you we're the only GPO in the world. We love our competitors, right? We're in a monstrous, gigantic industry that needs us. The industry needs us bad. If you're an operator, seek a GPO to help you. We help. We help drive your costs down. We help give you ideas of what's coming down the pike. We have people studying purchasing behavior, not just purchasing behavior on the restaurateur, but purchasing behavior even all the way back to the farms and what's happening at the farm. So we have that intel level that we provide so somebody can say presumptuously in the right way, tomatoes are going to tank. Let's figure out another cool way to make salsa. Let's do green salsa. Let's do cucumber salsa. Let's have a week of cool salsas or something. So I'm saying GPO. So you said last thought. So GPO, without a doubt. Take the time to listen to your customers if you haven't already. Even if before you started a restaurant, listen to your customers. What I mean is do your homework. You talked about a friend opening up a place. If you're not studying the behaviors And this is all information you can get from local government. You can get it from marketing agencies. You can do your own study. You can go on SurveyMonkey and run a survey in your area for very little money and listen to what people are telling you. Ultimately, if I'm in charge of a kitchen, I'm not the boss. I'm not the boss. The consumer's the boss. And watching what they're doing and modernizing your menus today to serve the needs of this generation I'm looking at that has most of the money in the world and it's doing all of the growing and so forth. We need to service what you want from a restaurant, Ryan, and you as well, Aaron. You're younger than me, and you guys are the ones with all the money. And so we need to check your behaviors and see what you like in food, what's getting you excited, and we need to adapt our menus to service your needs.
I will say to your testament about food trend and pricing on what's coming. There was one of the guy we did a video recording of one of the conferences a few months back.
Yes.
And the guy was talking about the pricing of eggs.
I remember that.
I totally forgot about it.
And
then,
look where we are.
I didn't forget about it because I edited the video and listened to it like at least 4 or 5 times. But I was telling all my family, I was like, look, eggs are going up, guys. Just gonna let you know, eggs is going up.
A carton of eggs is like at the top list of birthday presents right now.
And then out of nowhere,
Yeah.
Eggs is and I was like, well, damn, but
Yeah.
they're right.
Yeah.
So, any last minute thoughts, Aaron?
No, this has been like really enlightening. It's been
Yeah.
really cool to try to understand restaurants
Yeah,
and food.
We want to get more guests on here as well. So to hear us talk about motivation and marketing and kind of gets boring after a bit. So we want to keep it, liven it up. So
I think you can keep food at the forefront of, even call it a chapter of your discussions, and we've got great manufacturing partners, like got a group called Aspire Bakeries, and they represent like Otis Spunkmeyer and La Brea Bakeries, and they're the ones that move those beautiful products all over the country. And having somebody from a company like that come and talk to us and give us insights, I think it'd be really good for your listeners, for the consumer, to understand, what is the path of food from field to fork. It's a remarkable journey. I think an educated consumer is a better consumer. It answers their questions, what's going on with the pricing? Well, there's nobody making it over on anybody here. If we don't pay the prices that we've been forced to pay, the farmer's not going to make it either. They got to eat.
And then you won't have it no more.
You have nothing, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of, we all have to jump in this thing together. But
your avocado toast won't exist. Well,
that's right.
Well, the Mexican cartels own vast majority of the avocado farms in Mexico. I don't know if you knew that. They've diversified.
I watched a documentary on that, and like how avocados, the price of avocados drove a whole new industry for cartels, and how cartels would violently take over farms.
Yeah.
On a positive note, for half of my heritage, my mom's from Chile.
Mm-hmm.
I'm only first-generation American, but the U.S. relies heavily on Chile for the opposite seasons. That's why we can brag and say we eat strawberries all year long. So anything California does, Chile is doing it in the opposite season. We rely on them heavily. So you can look at it and see your grapes and see most of your fruit right now is coming out of Chile.
Interesting.
Yeah. Been a pleasure, guys. Thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to coming back.
Yeah. It's been great.
Again, thank you guys for tuning in to the Think Fresh Move Forward podcast. Be sure to hit and smash, as all the other YouTubers say.
Nice.
Smash that like button or subscribe button, one of the two. Thank you for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.